So it looks like my system may have dropped for a second there. So I want to make sure that everyone's hearing what I have to say here. So we found out that 80%, according to Monmouth University on June 21st, and evidence that you probably have not heard about, 80% of Americans believe in photo IDs and that they want to protect our elections. In the meantime, we are being told that what's happening in Arizona is a bad thing, that you're not supposed to talk about it, you're not supposed to know about that they have literally, YouTube has shut down Gail Golick and Susan Wood for at least 7 days. They're removing their videos so that you can't see them as they speak to actual people involved in an election audit, in their activities to protect the integrity of our elections. And I have to tell you, I believe, maybe you agree, maybe you don't, but I believe our elections, the reason why we have so much voter apathy, why 3, maybe 4 people out of 10 tend to vote in elections, I know 2020 was an exception to that, but normally 3 or 4 people out of 10 go out and vote. Most people don't pay attention to politics. They avoid it like the plague. And you want to know why? You want to know why? Because you're not supposed to think. Because they don't want you to see what's going on. Because people don't believe your vote counts. How many people have heard them say, oh, one vote, one person, my vote doesn't matter? How often do you hear, and almost exclusively, I hear this. Almost exclusively, I hear this from the far left. The far left will tell you over and over again, your vote doesn't matter. That we have to change the system because your one vote doesn't matter. Because your vote doesn't count. The far left tells you that on a regular basis, which is really, really strange considering they won't let anyone vote. They won't tell you who's voting. They want to make sure that anyone and everyone can show up. Illegal aliens can vote. They don't care. The dead can vote. It doesn't matter. How dare you even ask a question about the election system unless you're trying to change it to where it can be even more open and more likely to be affected. And that's any election. Whether it's your local election, federal election, doesn't matter. They're telling you, no, we need to make sure that everyone can vote. Illegal aliens can vote. If you happen to be in the United States, you can vote. We're going to send you a ballot in the mail. You think I'm kidding? No, I'm not kidding. This is real. Because we've seen the evidence of this. You know, when we look at this, and this is from the Detroit News. Detroit News today reported that Michigan says that, well, there was no voter fraud, but they have problems, that there are issues in their election. When they did this, so they're saying, oh, no, there's absolutely no credibility to the question that there was voting irregularities, except there were voting irregularities. That there are glaring issues that need to be addressed, but don't worry, they didn't actually affect anything. Glaring issues that they have to correct. I mean, this is like what's being said by the people like Gail Golick, like Susan Wood in Arizona. They're telling you there are problems. There are defined, clear, absolute problems in the election system based on the way that we have seen them change the laws. And the same thing is being said in Michigan, that there are absolutely problems here and they need to be fixed. But don't worry, don't think about it, because it doesn't matter. And by the way, they're also happening to say, oh, and the fact that you need voter ID, well, that's just racist. That's horrible. No. Even though 80% of America is saying one of the things that fixes the problems that Michigan and Arizona are finding, one of the things to fix the problems is to say, hey, let's get voter ID. 80% of Americans, that's Democrats, that's Republicans, that's Libertarians, everyone agrees on this overwhelmingly. And they're going to tell you, well, no, we're not going to do that, though. And you're supposed to have confidence in these elections? you're supposed to trust these elections? I don't understand a lot of these politicians, because they're telling you, you should go out and vote. You should have trust. You should believe in us. Believe in these politicians because they've been elected. And at the same time, they're also telling you, like this is Secretary of State Jenna Griswold from Colorado. She's saying, but don't ask a question about the elections. You don't get to have a audit. You don't get to look at the vote. You don't get to question the vote. Just trust us. This is her on June 19th saying this. Now, she will not allow anyone, even though there were dead voters on the rolls, even though that there are questions about the election, her answer is, you don't get to see that. You don't get to ask questions about that. Folks, isn't that terrifying? Maybe you disagree. Maybe you think, Mike, you just got it wrong. You don't understand. Because it's racist to ask for voter ID, even as black people and white people and Americans, more importantly, are saying we need voter ID. Even though the overwhelming number of people in America are saying we need voter ID, that's not an answer because that's racist. But letting dead people vote and sending them ballots, that's a good thing. And you should have confidence, even though we also have elected officials like Jenna Griswold who are saying, and you don't get to see what the results are. You don't get to ask any questions. We're going to send out the ballots. Yes, some dead people will get it. Yes, there's a problem in our system in Arizona, in Colorado, in Michigan. We know that for a fact, but you don't get to look at it. You don't get to ask a question about it. Just go out and do what we say. Isn't that terrifying? Is that American? Because that's not the American system that I grew up with. In fact, that's why we separated and why America, one of the reasons why America separated from England, from Great Britain. We became our own nation because we wanted to be able to influence our government, because we wanted to have a fair government. And now we're being told, don't even question the government. And if you do question it at any level, well, then it's your fault. You're the problem. That's what they're saying to you right now. They're saying to you right now, you are the problem because you're asking a question. How dare you ask a question? You're not a scientist. You're not a lawyer. You're not elected. And guess what, folks? In 53 years of my life, traveling overseas, being in the military, dealing with politics for 15 years, having run for elected office, I know politicians, teachers, lawyers, all of these people that they're talking are leaders and experts. And I can tell you definitively as a fact, as a fellow expert, that these elected officials, these other people, they're just as dumb as anyone else. They are no smarter. They are no better. Yes, do lawyers know a little bit more about the law? Absolutely. Are there politicians who've been doing it so long that they know about the system? Yeah, they do. And actually, that's a problem because that's why they abuse it so badly. Are there doctors who know more? Absolutely. That doesn't mean that the average American is an idiot. It doesn't mean we're a second-class citizen unable to ask intelligent questions. I regularly, you want to know what's a question? How about this? I asked several elected officials. I asked several lawyers. I asked several people involved in the red flag laws in New York State and other states, and I have been for several years, and I've asked them about the consequences of their law. And they looked at me and said, what are you talking about? What consequence? How about taking away children from adults? Taking away your kids and separating families? They go, oh, I didn't realize that was the consequence. These brilliant people who are there to pass these wonderful laws that are absolutely going to make you safe didn't think it through to understand that they're going to damage families without anyone ever committing a crime, without providing due process to American citizens who are guaranteed due process by our Constitution. That's terrifying. So when people tell me, Mike, these politicians, they're smart. No, they're not. I've talked to members of Congress. I've talked to senators. I've talked to state legislators. They're no smarter than anyone else. They don't suddenly get an election and suddenly someone injects them with IQ points. They're just as smart as they were before, or just as dumb. And they are just as prone to mob mentality, which honestly, that is critical race theory. That is intersectionality. That is gender identity politics. It's mob mentality. They're just as prone to that as anyone else, which should terrify people. Because it terrifies me. Absolutely terrifies me. And we have this all happening at the same time that we have one of the worst administrations I have ever seen in office. An administration that lives by the idea, don't ask any questions. Please. The Biden administration doesn't want you to ask Joe Biden any questions ever. They want him to shut up. And they don't want to ask Kamala Harris any questions. They want her to just show up, look good. Because you know what happens when they get asked questions? Well, Joe Biden rambles off about God only knows what he's talking about. No one knows what he's speaking about. And you hear Kamala Harris, she starts laughing about kids in cages, about kids dying on 1,000-mile treks to the United States. Because Kamala Harris insults an entire country. That's South Korea, which we've covered on the show before. Insults an entire country of our allies. That's what happens when you ask questions, when you actually pay attention to what they're doing. The evidence is out there. Will You Teach Me mentions politics is a game of popularity in most cases. Just vote with your party so nobody gets mad at you, and that's not what America needs. It is absolutely not what America needs. I'm not trying to tell you that you need to be a Republican. I have never said that. I'm not saying that now. I'm not telling you need to be a libertarian. I'm not telling you to be a conservative. I'm not telling you to be a Democrat. I am telling you you shouldn't want to be a socialist, but I'm not going to stop you from being one.
Blackjack Pizza and Salads has a new cauliflower crust in addition to all your favorites. Enjoy a delicious lighter crust option that pairs perfectly with a fresh blackjack salad. Cauliflower crust is available for a limited time only, so order now at blackjackpizza.com.
The United States Postal Service is about to get less mail.
I have no idea where this is coming from.
Less
I apologize.
MALE mail, as in it's overseen by a bunch of dudes right now. And President Biden has picked a Coloradan who specializes in mail-in voting to get into that all-mail club.
Oh, I hate
Amber
this, folks.
McReynolds was just nominated to be on the Postal Service Board, which currently can hold its meetings in the building without a women's restroom.
Some channel.
McReynolds used to be Denver's elections director. She runs the National Vote at Home Institute.
Sorry about that, folks. This is ridiculous. This is insanely ridiculous. That we can't ask questions. No one's supposed to ask General Milley, why is it important to know about racism? And by creating more racism. No one's supposed to ask Kamala Harris, what's going on with the southern border? I mean, do you remember what happened when she was asked about that? When Lester Holt said, when are you going to the border? And her answer was, eventually. I haven't gone to Europe yet. What? I can't go to the border? It was insane. To answer D. Don, no, it wasn't a Fox alert. It was sometimes when I have some of the channels, when I go and I'm covering news reports, like the one from that was in Michigan, in Colorado, the local news media like to force their video clips to go through, even if you're not watching it, just because you have it on that page. So it's a bit annoying. Mike Bowie mentions that this is just fake. There's a lot of fake news and there's a fake president. That is one point of view. Shauna mentions that over time, but here it is, John McAfee did not really. John McAfee didn't kill himself. Neither did Epstein. And actually, Shauna, I agree with you. I don't think that John McAfee killed himself. I don't think that Epstein killed themselves. But that's a slightly off topic. Well, that's what you meant by OT. Yeah, D-Don, I have normally somewhere around 20, 30 different items, topics that I'm presenting to you. So I sometimes can't figure out which channel it is when those local channels force that through. But more importantly, we're talking about, okay, so I was talking about Kamala Harris. And by the way, Dee, thank you for even being on the channel and paying attention. And thank you for asking me the question. Because I enjoy, and I think it's important, and I think it's part of the First Amendment. It's part of America to ask questions, to have critiques, to say, is this the best thing that we should be doing? Is this the best way for America to be? We improve America by asking questions, not by isolating people, not by restricting people, not by trying to punish people by shutting down their pages like happened to Gail, like happened to Susan, like it's happened to over 1 million people since the beginning of January of 2021. That's not how you make a nation better. Saying that there's only one way to think and you must think that way or else. That's not improving a nation. That's not the thing that does it. You know, we should be able to ask a question like Lester Holt asked of Kamala Harris, which was completely appropriate. Kamala Harris in March was told that she had to make our southern border safe because we have a problem. There is a crisis at our southern border. It's not called a crisis. It's not called a crisis because that would make Joe Biden and the Biden administration look bad. So it's not called a crisis. But it is a crisis when you have the greatest numbers in 20 years of people trying to break our law, enter our country illegally, when we have epidemic numbers of children that are being sent on. This is child abuse. I've said this often, over and over again. It's child abuse, where we have parents who are sending their kids by themselves with sex offenders, with gangs, to trek on 1,000 miles without food or clothing, and to hopefully get into the United States. That's child abuse. And we can't ask, when are you going to be at the border? She laughed at Lester Holt. She laughed on international TV. She laughed at Lester Holt because she was in Guatemala at that moment. No wonder the Guatemalan people were saying, get out of our country. Dee mentions an example of exactly what you are talking about, our right to ask questions, and I've enjoyed listening and sharing your videos for 4 years. I didn't know that, Dee. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Because we need to have this conversation. We need to be able to ask these things. And there's a problem. It is a serious problem in our southern border. We have an epidemic. And I don't think most people know how big this epidemic is. And the sad thing is, the only reason why Kamala Harris decided to go to the United States southern border, something she had to fly over to get to Guatemala. She had to fly across the southern border to get from Mexico back to Washington, D.C. The only reason why she actually stopped at our border, where American citizens are being affected, is because a politician decided he was going to go there. That's right, former President Trump and Governor Ted Abbott, that they're going to the border on the 30th. They made that announcement on June 15th. And then suddenly, just before they actually show up, that's when Kamala Harris decides to go. And what did she have to say? What did she have to say when she was down there? What she said was, well, she talked to 5 girls who were between the ages of 9 and 16, and they came from Central America. Meanwhile, she did not visit the 1,600 children that were in Fort Bliss in El Paso. She was in El Paso. She was right there. She could have gone to Fort Bliss at any moment. But instead of actually seeing where the problem was, where 1,600 children were being housed in inadequate conditions, no, she went and talked to 5 kids because she didn't want anyone to ask her a question. She didn't want you to think about this. And I want you to understand, this is Kamala Harris. This is what I want you to hear this. This is from, of course, C-SPAN. I want you to hear what she had to say here.
Them for the success that they have seen thus far. I'd call it progress.
We believe homeowners deserve the very best, which is why Gravina's windows...
Sorry. She wants to call it progress. She wants to call it progress. Did you hear her say that? Let me put that back. I want to let you hear that.
Doing the job every day. I commend all of them for the success that they have seen thus far. I'd call it progress. We're not exactly where we want to be yet, but we have seen extreme progress over these last few months.
We have seen extreme progress. And she's talking about down in our southern border. Extreme progress. And she got that because she talked to 5 kids while ignoring 1,600 children. And I want you to understand, folks, because no one's going to show you this evidence. No one is talking about this. This is from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Please, I want you to follow this. This is from their most recent announcement on June 9th from the May 2020. There were 180,000 people who entered our southern border illegally. In April, from, again, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, in April, there were 178,622 people. In March, according to the March numbers, there were 172,000 people at our southern border entering illegally. Can you imagine this? Now, I want you to also understand, and I'm showing you from the United States government. This isn't my thoughts. This isn't me guessing about this. This is something that you are not told by the news media, local or major news media. No one is talking about this. Do you know how many children were actually at our southern border? Over 40,000. Over 40,000 children have come to our southern border. There's 500,000 people more than 500,000 people who have come to our southern border illegally in 4 months. In 4 months. And Kamala Harris has the gall to stand there in front of you and say, but it's all good. We've got a handle on this. She's got so much of a handle on this. This is so resolved and so simple and so easy. She's got this fixed so well that she won't even show you the 5 children she went to visit. She won't even go to the 1,500 kids that were sitting there by themselves at Fort Bliss. She won't go there. And they won't tell you about the fact that they have been shipping since February children from the southern border everywhere else in the nation, which is the only reason why they're not still in the overcrowded cages. In the meanwhile, they still won't let the press go and actually take a look at these kids. And we have proven this over and over again over the last several weeks on this channel. We have shown you the news announcements from Chattanooga, from NBC, proving that this is going on. Let me go back to the comments. D mentions, however, not enough people are respectful like you and answer respectfully, honestly, and informatively. We try our very best on this channel. Obviously, we do get emotional from time to time, but we try to make sure. We want to hear what people have to say. D mentions that these politicians that avoid or get angry are not trustworthy. Well, when we're looking at Kamala Harris, she laughs. She laughs at the idea that she should somehow go to our southern border. And when you're seeing someone who is actively avoiding the southern border, when you see someone who is actively avoiding answering a very simple question, which has been asked since February by Senator Ted Cruz, Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, and members of the Democratic press, the left-leaning press, Lester Holt, when they're all asking the same question and her answer is, ha, 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 how am I supposed to have trust in that? And that's the same people who are telling me, you know, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, the major news media, they're the same people who are telling me, hey, there's a fire. They're the same people who are telling us that don't believe your eyes. There's no riot here. That's not arson that you're watching burn live in the background. These are the same people who are saying this to you. These are the same people who are saying, you don't need to be able to see an election. You don't need to count any of the votes. And if you ask those questions about the votes, by the way, we're going to get rid of you. We're going to silence you. We're going to eliminate your voice. You know, that doesn't sound like freedom to me. That doesn't sound like they're actually doing something beneficial. And as always, I'm asking the far left. I'm asking members of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow. I'm asking members of Citizen United, the BLM, the far left. I'm asking them, if you think I'm wrong, please explain to me how I'm wrong. If you want me to believe that Kamala Harris actually cares, please tell me why she hasn't said, stop abusing your children by sending them on 1,000-mile treks to our nation. Why has she not said, I'm going to the border on X date, and this is the reason why I'm going there on that day? Why is it that she's telling us that this problem is fixed when more than 500,000 people have entered into our nation illegally, and over 40,000 children have been entering our nation illegally and have been shipped to hide them from the news media, to hide them from the American people? And when you ask her something about that, she laughs at you. And I'm supposed to be confident? You're supposed to be confident that the elections are reflecting everything? Even as 80% of the American people say, no, we want photo ID so we can have more secure and confident elections, and they're laughing at you. Kamala Harris is laughing at you. She says, remember, she said she went to Guatemala because she wants to find out what the root problem.
It's celebration time at American Furniture Warehouse, and our 4th of July event is full of savings.
Sorry about that, folks. I'm getting rid of that article. Okay. She wants to tell you that she wanted to go to Guatemala in South America and Mexico to find out what is the root problem. Why are people coming to the United States? Because she can't figure it out. Kamala Harris, who is supposed to be this super brilliant individual, that's why she's vice president, not because she's a woman, not because of her color of skin, which are the reasons, but she's there because 5%, literally 5% of Democrats actually wanted her to get elected. She's there and she's super brilliant, and she's saying, well, we have to go to South America and figure out what's the problem. Why are people leaving Guatemala, El Salvador, their homes, to come to the United States? Guess what, folks? I have the answer for that. And I see your comment, D, and give me one moment because I'm going to answer you. But I want to give you the answer. Why are people leaving Guatemala? Why are they leaving El Salvador? Why are they leaving Honduras? Why are they leaving Venezuela, the latest super home of communism? Why are they coming to the United States instead? Well, the answer is real simple. Here it is. The gross domestic product of Guatemala, 2019, latest numbers that we have, $76.71 billion. They have a $76 billion national gross domestic product. Guess what? Memphis has the same GDP. In fact, it has a bigger one. The city of Memphis in the United States has a gross domestic product of $78 million. 78. We see that Memphis is about the same size as Guatemala. There's 16 million people in Guatemala. There are 600,000 people in Memphis. You have more freedom, more quality of life in Memphis than you do in Guatemala. You're safer in Memphis than you are in Guatemala, with the exception, don't go to Chicago. Chicago is more deadly than Guatemala. But outside of Chicago, Baltimore, New York City, if you take out the Democratic strongholds, if you skip those, the rest of America is safer than anywhere in Guatemala. That should tell you something. So why are people going from South America or other parts of the world? Because we have cities that have higher gross domestic GDPs, gross domestic production, that is higher than entire countries. We have states with higher GDPs than entire countries. Your quality of life is higher in the United States than almost anywhere else, actually anywhere else in the world, with more freedom than anywhere else in the world. There's your answer. So if she's saying, well, we have to fix the problem in these other countries, the only way you could do that is if you could make Guatemala the United States, which ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. We have a $1 trillion GDP, $1.3 trillion GDP. You're not taking Guatemala from 76 billion to 1.3 trillion. It ain't happening. So yeah, people are going to keep going from their poverty-stricken countries, of which Guatemala is one of the most poverty-stricken countries in South America and the Caribbean, and they're going to come to America. We know why they're coming. That doesn't fix the problem. But then again, you're not supposed to ask a question. You're not supposed to look at the numbers. You're not supposed to think. You're supposed to just do what you're told. So let me get to Dee's comment here. Read to yourself before reading on air. Don't want me in trouble with YouTube. Yes, that is one of the problems. Thank you, Dee, for mentioning that. Because of the restrictions on freedom of YouTube, of the internet overlords, I can't repeat your comment there. Not because it's vulgar, not because it's incorrect per se. I can't say it because they don't like it, because it requires thought, because it's a question, because it's a question about our government. And their answer is, well, you can't ask questions and you can't speak about these things. I can barely say that Arizona has an audit. And to say that may get this channel struck. And the video that I did with Gail and Susan, that may disappear. Because in that conversation, we said things that YouTube may not like. At this very second, I have 2 channels on Facebook that I normally post this to live. Only one of them is being allowed to go through right now. Did we get a notification from Facebook? Not a word. Have we been told why? Not at all. Are you being denied? Are people on Facebook being denied the opportunity to be able to speak? Yes, they are. Why? Because I've said something so dangerous as to give you information from the BBC News, from NBC, from Forbes magazine, from Channel News 9 in Colorado. Because I'm giving you information from the United States government itself. You know, that should make you wonder, why is that so terrifying? That they have to try and silence us. How they have to try and silence you. They're after you. They're not after me. They're after you. I mean, I do want you to subscribe. I do want you to like and share this. But they're attacking you. They don't want you to speak. They don't want you to think. They don't want you to ask questions. That's why they're doing this to me, is because they don't want you to have to think. You're just supposed to accept what they say, and that's a problem. D mentions, everyone knows corruption either by government, freebies, illegals, even poor ones have privileges, rights, and the ability to earn money with less likelihood for it to be stolen. You know what? I'm not saying, I want to be clear, because sometimes I know some of the far left like to misquote me and say, oh my God, you're a racist because you don't like Guatemala. No, I'm not saying that. I am saying Guatemala is poor because Guatemala is poor. I'm saying that Guatemala has a corrupt government because Guatemala has a corrupt government. And I'm saying that throwing money at them, which is the answer that Kamala Harris came up with, is something that we've been doing for decades. This is not a new concept. We've been throwing money at Guatemala and Central America and South America for decades, and it doesn't fix the problem. It doesn't raise the quality of life. It doesn't create more innovation there. It's not getting rid of the corruption. In fact, it probably feeds the corruption, because most of the money we're sending to Guatemala is like the money that we send over to Afghanistan or even to Iran to help feed their people, or in North Korea. It doesn't get to the average person. It goes to the corrupt officials. And those countries stay corrupt, and they stay in power because we keep giving them money. Your money, your taxes. This is your money. In fact, we're so far in debt, it's not only the money you have right now, it's the money you're going to make in the future. It's the money that your grandkids are going to make in the future. And they want to bankrupt us so badly that we currently are at $28 trillion in debt. And by the time Biden and Harris get done, it is projected that we will be $50 trillion in debt. $50 trillion. And to put that into perspective for you, there is approximately $150 trillion in the world. I want to be very clear about that. Look this up for yourself. There is approximately $150 trillion in the world. In 4 years, the United States government is expected to have $50 trillion in debt. 1/3 of all the money in the world will be debt of the United States. And this is what they're telling you is the answer to the problems. We're just going to throw more money at it. We'll just give them more money down in South America. It isn't improving their lives. It has never improved their lives. It has never made their government less corrupt. But that's the answer. Don't you feel better now? Go vote for Kamala. Go and help them out. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. It is insane. It is aggravating. And it doesn't end there, because we're being told, and we have to do this. We have to give this money to Guatemala. We have to give the money to South America. We have to give the money to Iran and to North Korea and the Middle East. We have to give them all of our money and all of our American ideas, because critical race theory, because we're racist, because the United States is a racist nation, and because white people are inherently racist. So we have to give them money. We have to give them stuff. We have to take it away from you, and we have to give it to them, because that's the inherent answer, because of racism, which actually helps no one. No one is made better by this. And you know what? The people of Guatemala knew it. The people of Guatemala were pissed off. They said, even though we were saying, we're going to give you $310 million to Central America. $310 million. That's so much money. No, it's not. That's really not going to do anything. We're giving it to Honduras and El Salvador and Guatemala, and it changes nothing in their lives. Because we were already sending them the money. We've been sending them money for decades, and they are still coming illegally into our nation. Because let's face it, the United States is a great place to live. And it's a great place to live because it's free. Because I don't see, I really have a problem trying to understand that hundreds of thousands, literally 500,000 people in the last 4 months, 40,000 children all by themselves, they're all coming to the United States because of racism? I mean, let's think this through. The very thing that they don't want you to do. They don't want you to do is think about this. So we have literally in the last 4 months, 500,000 people trying to enter the United States illegally. And these are the ones that have lived, that have survived, that weren't captured by drug gangs or sex abusers and sex traffickers. The people who actually survived and made it, that we found, that didn't die in the desert, these people came to the United States through all of that hardship because America is racist, because white people have rage and privilege, because is that the answer? Is that why everyone wants to be in America? Because of white rage and privilege? Does that make any sense? Is that a reason to come to a country? Because there's more white people in Russia than there are in the United States, and I don't see anyone rushing to get over there. And what about China? Is it facetious? I don't think so. But these are legitimate questions. And we're not getting legitimate answers. We're not getting legitimate fixes to this. You know, and we have stupid things being said to us because we're not supposed to ask questions. I'll give you another example of what I'm talking about here. Here's Joe Biden talking about gun control.
I'd add the Second Amendment from the day it was passed limited the type of people who could own a gun and what type of weapon you could own. You couldn't buy a cannon. Those who say the blood of patriots, you know, and all the stuff about how we're going to have to move against the government. Well, the tree of liberty is not water with the blood of patriots. What's happened is that there never been, if you want to think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons.
There are so many things wrong with what he just said. It is absolutely mind-boggling how stupid and wrong he said. And if you don't believe me, you don't have to. Yes, I am a conservative, Republican, black, Hispanic. You don't want to believe me, that's fine. How about PolitiFact? PolitiFact is telling you that he is absolutely wrong. It's not true. He just lied to you. That the Second Amendment we didn't have restrictions. There haven't always been restrictions on being able to own firearms. You could own a cannon when the nation was created. You could own a cannon. You could own a machine gun. And they had machine guns. It's called the pucker gun. They had machine guns in the at the birth of our nation. So yes, you could. He is lying. It's not true. And God only knows what he's talking about, the blip. He didn't even know what he was talking about and half of what he was saying. But the parts that we could understand, he's lying. Demonstrably, absolutely. It's not a question. It's not even a guess. It's absolutely a lie. And you're not supposed to question it. Hell, I'm surprised that PolitiFact even had the ability to put up this and say he's lying, that this is not true, that he just lied to the American public about a fundamental core of our Constitution. But if you aren't teaching our kids about the Constitution and instead you're telling them about gender identity politics, if you're taking time to tell them about intersectionality, if you're wasting their time with critical race theory and telling them how they should hate one another, how we should teach kids to hate someone based on the color of their skin, if you're filling the kids' heads with that and not telling them what the Second Amendment actually says, then you can get away with anything. And if you don't let people talk about it, if you don't let them have conversations about it, like we see right now with Facebook blocking one of the channels that I'm on, then yeah, you can get away with anything. Is that making people more confident to vote? I don't think so. Is that making our nation a better nation? I know it's not. It's not improving our communities. It's making things worse. And it's going to make it way worse because in 10 years, those kids in elementary school will have 10 years of being filled with these stupid ideas and these outright lies. And then what happens to our country when those kids go out and vote? What happens when those kids have been trained that the military is supposed to be a feel-good place where you can't tell them anything, let alone tell them that, hey, you have to go and take down that pillbox. No, I don't think I feel like that. That's not what I want to do. Because that's what the military is all about. And if you say, Johnson, you go and I need you to flank the enemy. No, you're just saying that because I'm black. It's racism. That's racist. You're the best shot we have. Go and flank that guy so that we can take the objective. No, you're just saying that because I'm black, so I'm not going to do it. Is that what our military is going to become? No wonder China is laughing. No wonder Russia is laughing. No wonder that North Korea is laughing. These people are laughing at the United States. And they're laughing because they know that this guy, Joe Biden, is so stupid. And I can only say it's stupid because this is fundamentally, absolutely ignorant and incorrect. It's not that he doesn't know. He ran for elected office. He's been in Congress for 36 years. He's been a politician for 47 years. He's been vice president. He knows what the Constitution says. He knows he is wrong. Absolutely, categorically, unequivocally wrong. So wrong that PolitiFact and the rest of the news media have to say that it is not true. They can't even cover that up. So instead, they tell Joe to not speak. And they have Kamala Harris talking for him, even though that's not her job, even though she's not accomplishing the job that she has. Because we're not supposed to think about that. I don't know. Tell me, folks. You tell me. What do you think about that? How does that make you feel? And you don't have to, if you're not here with us live right now, that's okay. Tell us afterwards. Leave a comment. Like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment down there and say, hey, this is why I agree or disagree with you. Tell me, how do you feel? I want to know how you feel about this. Do you feel like America is becoming better because of critical race theory? Do you feel better because you know that there are people who are being judged by the color of their skin as being evil? Does that make you feel better? Does it make you feel better when you know that you have Joe Biden lying to your face about what your rights actually are? Do you feel better when Kamala Harris laughs in your face as she tells you something that is obvious and tells you that it's a problem and then tells you, well, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Dee mentions that we're on the same page. I think most people are. I think just like the 80% of people who want to see IDs for voting and know that it's not racist because black people can afford an ID card that costs like $15, that most black people can go online and be able to register to vote because they can do these things. Biden seems to think they can't. The major news media seem to think it's impossible. Democrats in Congress seem to think it's impossible for you to figure out, if you happen to be a person of color, that you can figure out how to use the internet or that you can afford $15. How much does it cost to get a Disney Plus? How much is that per month? Hulu, Netflix? Because obviously black people can afford that. That's besides going out and buying pizza. That's besides going out and just shopping for food. How much do sneakers cost? Jeans? $500 for a pair of jeans? I've seen that. It's just ridiculous, but I've seen it. $400 for a pair of sneakers? Black people can afford that. And you mean to tell me that they can afford a pair of Air Jordans, which are a couple $100, and they can't afford a $15 ID card? Are you serious? The fact that they would even suggest that is insane. And it just tells you how badly they are lying to your face and how desperate they are to make sure don't think about it. Because that's the easy answer to debunk it. Well, black people can't afford to get an ID, voter ID. It's too expensive. How much does the average pair of Air Jordans cost? How many Americans, especially black Americans, buy Air Jordans or Puff Daddy or Tommy Hilfiger or Gucci? How many? How many billions of dollars are being spent on clothing? How many billions of dollars are being spent on hip hop music, on going to concerts? And you mean to tell me, with those billions upon billions of dollars, hair products, black women's hair products, the very first black billionaire was because of, or was it millionaire? Millionaire, first black millionaire was because of black women's hair products. And you mean to tell me that we can spend all of this money on all of these absolutely useless ideas and we can't figure out how to take $15 and get an ID? And you want me to understand that that's not being insulting to black people because they don't know any better. And if you disagree with that, well, you must be a racist and you must have white rage. Are you stupid? That is the most insulting, racist, illogical thing that I've ever heard. And yet it is popular. Let me tell you, folks. And I'm going to get to your comment in a second, Mike. I want to share something with you very important, folks. A friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine, died 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, he died. And there were a couple of wakes for him, which were celebrations. He's a musician. He was a musician. And I was taking photos. And you know, I had, at one of the events, I'm trying to take pictures so people would have memories, positive memories about celebrating our friend. And this one person, a progressive, turned over to me and said, "You're evil. You should, I know you're evil because someone said you were evil online." And I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't the time or the place. I'm here about celebrating my friend's death. And you want to tell me about politics that someone else said about me, not even something I said myself. This is what someone else said about what I said, because that person actually had never seen any of the 2 million plus words that I have written in the last 15 years. They have never seen any any minutes of the 1,100 videos that I have on YouTube. No, they didn't pay attention to any of that. They decided because someone else said, well, Mike must be a racist and Mike is evil, that they said that about me at a celebration of my friend's death. This is the problem we have. This is what critical race theory brings up. If you oppose critical race theory, if you stand up for ideas and principles, if you have beliefs, and if you ask questions about elections, if you ask questions about medicine, if you ask questions about our government, then you're evil, and they will come after you even in moments of deep grief that have nothing to do with it. And that should scare you, folks. So, D mentions, sorry about my friend's death, and thank you. Dan Pokorek, great man. He's loved, and he will be missed. Mike mentions, if blacks voted Republican, voter ID would already be law. And you're right, Mike, but blacks won't vote because they're told. Actually, did you see the terror that was going through the Democratic Party when they heard, when they thought that more than 20% of blacks would actually vote for Republican? They were terrified. Stephen E. Smith once said on ESPN that if you really want to see change in America, and if you happen to be a minority and you really want to see an effective change in government, no problem. You want to see an improvement in your life, if you want BLM, you want to have more power in the government, fantastic. Vote Republican, all blacks. If you get 80% of blacks, if you got 50, if you got 40%, not even 30%, if you could get 30% of blacks to all vote Republican in one election, if you can get them to vote Libertarian in one election across the nation, you will see Democrats bend over backwards to make sure that there is nothing else that they do except get back the black vote. That is an absolute fact. If they saw 30%, that's a critical mass number. That would be enough votes to guarantee that any Democrat would not win. That's how far they have guaranteed. The Democratic Party has so taken advantage of blacks and Hispanics that they count absolutely on the fact that they're going to get no less than 70, 75, actually 80% of all minority votes. And if they were to ever get less than 75% of that vote, it's so calculated into their numbers that they would lose every single election. If you don't believe me, go and ask any Democratic analyst, you go and ask any Democratic pundit, you ask anyone who actually looks at election data, and they will tell you this is a fact. It is a known part of the calculation in elections. Everyone does it. It is a known calculation in politics. And if blacks and minorities were to once come under, if they were to have less than 75% voting for Democrats, every single Democratic candidate would lose. Guaranteed. And that would create such an insanity in our American politics, in the Democratic Party, along with the progressives and the socialists. They would lose their minds, and they would pass every law they could to help black people. I guarantee you. Don't believe me? Vote Republican once. That's what Stephen Smith from ESPN said. Go with him. Not because I asked you to do it, because he did. And if you think I'm wrong, if you think I'm lying that Stephen Smith said that, look it up. I believe it was 2014. Don't quote me on that, but it was Stephen Smith from ESPN. He said, yeah, all blacks should vote Republican one time. One time. And that's all it would take. Change all politics. Because there is a problem in America. You know what the problem is? Critical race theory. It's progressivism. It's socialism that says, oh, you are so helpless. You are so lesser that you can't do anything without us. That's what they say to women. That's what they say to gays. That's what they say to the trans. And that's what they say to blacks and Hispanics. You aren't able to do it yourself. You're not qualified. Oh, there was a black man as president? Doesn't matter. Oh, we have what is it? Like a quarter of Congress is held by people who are black and or Hispanic and or women. But that's okay. Who cares? That's not important. We have how many leaders, women in the Fortune 500, blacks in the Fortune 500? Doesn't matter. How many businesses are owned by blacks, women? Doesn't matter. Because you're completely useless, you're completely lesser, because that's why they have critical race theory. To convince you of a lie that you are not worthy. And you should never ask a question about it. Because if you ever ask a question about it, well, then you're a problem. Because you might think of the fact that none of this makes sense. None of it makes sense. You're not supposed to ask a question. Why is Kamala Harris trying to fix the problem, doing the same thing she's always done? Why is Joe Biden trying to fix the problem of gun violence, doing the same thing that Democrats have done for the last 47 years that he's been in government. Because all they do is punish lawful gun owners. They haven't come out with anything that's going to make life harder for MS-13, the gun runners down across the southern border, of people who are crazed and criminal and want to commit crimes. They haven't stopped any of them. There is not. Look at every single red flag law. Look at the New York SAFE Act. Look at every single background checks have existed for decades. Look at everything they're talking about. Not one thing actually stops a criminal. Not one. Not one thing punishes a criminal. They're not trying to stop criminals. Defunding the police does not stop criminals. It actually encourages them. Reels mentions someone did something bad and I am supposed to pay for it. That is the idea. That is critical race theory. That is gender identity politics. That is in intersectionality. They want to blame someone else for all the problems, and they want to be in control of how they're going to fix the problem, how they're going to take from someone to give to someone else, which almost always involves them being raised up higher and higher. Look at Patricia Kalors. Look at Reverend Al Sharpton. Look at Don Lemon. Look at the people who are doing well. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Maxine Waters. Look at the examples that are out there. I mean, if you think I'm wrong, I do want to hear it, folks. But I'm giving you evidence and I'm quoting individuals and I'm showing you what's out there. And they're telling you, don't believe your eyes, don't listen to it, don't think about it. Because it doesn't matter. Because America is a horrible, horrible place. You know what? America is so horrible that we have Olympic alternates like Chelsea Wolfe, who's a transgender BMX freestyle, which is, I didn't even know that in the Olympics, BMX was a event. Okay. But there's a BMX freestyle. This is an Olympic competition, and an alternate, Chelsea Wolfe, happens to be transgender and wants to burn the United States flag. And this is the person. They want to go to the Olympics so they can burn the United States flag. Can you imagine that? We got another one here. This is the hammer throw. Okay? The hammer throw, and this is from Reuters. Hammer throw, and her name is Gwen Berry. And Gwen Berry's pissed off because she had to stand for the Star Spangled Banner. It was being played. The national anthem was being played. And she had to stand up there, and she was pissed off. What was it? They played at an event, at an international event. She goes, I feel like I was set up. I felt like they did this on purpose, playing the national anthem. She was pissed too. To be honest. They had enough opportunity to play the national anthem before we got up there, because it's up to the athletes when the national anthem is played, because they might object to their own national anthem. She goes on to say, I was thinking about what I should do. Eventually, I stayed there on a podium because she won. Eventually, I stayed up there and I swayed and I put my shirt over my head. It was real disrespectful. By the way, if you're wondering, what did her shirt? She pulled up her shirts because she had a black t-shirt underneath, and it said the words, activist athlete. And she knows that she was being disrespectful. These are her words. She is quoted by Reuters. She knows she was being disrespectful at the highest level. She knows that she was wrong. And she did this on purpose. Just like we have Chelsea Wolfe, who is planning to burn the U.S. flag to be disrespectful on purpose. And remember, we have Berry and we have Wolfe, those two athletes who are actively looking to disrespect America. They hate America. And here's the biggest thing. At the same time, we have 500,000 people, as I showed you, from the U.S. government documents themselves, 500,000 people that are entering the country illegally because they think it's the greatest place on earth. We have people who believe America is so good and filled with so much opportunity that these athletes don't care about, and that they are literally, actively, purposefully being disrespectful against, that people in other countries are sending their children on multi-thousand-mile treks. They are literally abusing their children to send them across a desert with sex fiends and drug gangs just to be in this nation. And we have these athletes who are saying, oh, and by the way, the country sucks. You know what? If you think it sucks so much, why don't, I would say to Barry, I would say to Chelsea Wolf, guess what? Leave, and we'll take one of those kids. If you don't like America that much, get on out. Take yourself and a bunch of your athletic friends who have this belief that America's an absolutely horrible place, go somewhere else in the world that you think is better, and we will give your spot to some other kid from Honduras or from Guatemala or Mexico or anywhere else in the world, and give them your place. If you think America is so terrible, you go somewhere else. Let's see how well you will do in life by being, let me see how well you're going to do anywhere else in the world being a professional BMX freestyle rider. Please, let me see how much success you're going to have in life being a professional hammer throw. Let's see your success in the world doing that in some nation that isn't the United States. And you know what? I'm willing to trade them for one of those kids that came to America illegally and walked through the desert by themselves. Now, let me ask you folks this. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with me on that? Because that's a trade I'm more than happy to make. Because I think that's a trade we should make. But they're asking you not to think about it. They're telling you that this is not a thought you should have. You shouldn't ask questions like, how about this one? And I'm going to go one more thing and then I'll let it go. But how about this? Joe Biden reverses himself on infrastructure, says he would sign a bipartisan deal. You're not supposed to ask the question, why is it that Joe Biden, who is trying to spend trillions of dollars that we don't have on an infrastructure bill that doesn't deal with infrastructure, how he's trying to, he says, I'm going to block the bill, and then turns around and says, well, no, I'll let it go through. You're not supposed to ask about that? You're not supposed to ask what is going through this man's mind? You're not supposed to ask about why Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez thinks that the answer to you're not an American is I'm tall. It doesn't make sense to me, folks. But this is why I'm asking you. Because I know when I talk to individuals like Agent Black, who's in Great Britain, when I speak to some of the people who are watching the program in Canada, in Mexico, in Germany, in India, they seem to think America's great. They don't see the racism. The same racism that France, as I showed you earlier in the show, is absolutely rejecting. That Great Britain is absolutely rejecting. That everywhere else in the world, they're rejecting this idea. They think it's a stupid American idea that doesn't help anyone. That it isn't beneficial. That it has no place other than to promote a political ideology of a very small group of people who have a very specific goal. I don't know. You guys tell me. We got about another 4 minutes on the show, and then we'll end today. The whole point of today's show was to ask a question about, to counter what we have as the headline. That this isn't about, or that this isn't about silencing people. It's about letting people speak. That you should ask questions. That you should not just take for granted whatever the government says. That you shouldn't take for granted whatever elected officials say. People who are experts. You shouldn't just take them for granted. You shouldn't just believe them blindly, like CNBC or MSNBC or CNN, or even Fox News for that matter. I'd even go that far. Why do you think I have so much coverage of outside the country? Why I go to The Guardian, the BBC, Israeli Times, even Al Jazeera sometimes? Why am I looking at their news coverage? Because I don't trust hearing a small group of experts who say, oh, we have all the answers. No, you don't. And you don't show all the truth. And you do tell people misinformation. Now, that doesn't mean that I think, oh, you should be banned forever. No more misinformation. You'll never say another word again. No, that's not the answer. The answer is, give me the opportunity to see the information for myself and let me speak about it. Let you speak about it. Let's talk more. The answer to racism is having more speech, not trying to silence them, because a silent racist is more dangerous than a vocal one. The only good thing about critical race theory, the only good thing about intersectionality, the only good thing about gender identity politics is they think they're winning, and so they're more than happy to tell everyone about it. That they're willing to go to your kids and tell your kids, hey, we're going to teach you this. By the way, don't tell your parents. The fact that they think they can get away with that is the best thing possible, because now we know what we're dealing with. Because when they were hiding it behind our backs, we didn't know what was going on. We didn't find out until they put the dagger in our back. Now we know. You know. I'm showing you the evidence. It's one of the only reasons why this channel has not been shut down yet, and don't think that they won't, because as I said, they're blocking it right this second. And they've had lots of issues that they have provided on this channel, dropping the coverage from time to time as we speak live with you. The only reason why they haven't completely wiped out this channel yet and given us suspensions like they did to Gail and Susan is because I keep showing their evidence. I keep showing what the left is saying. I keep showing you what the major media is putting out there that they're not telling you about, that they're not promoting, that they're hiding from you. In plain, right in front of you. Plainly, right in front of you, they put it out there and then they hide it with all this other information. They keep you distracted with things like the Kardashians. They keep talking about Ben Affleck and J-Lo. They keep putting on programs like the Grammy Awards so that you're completely distracted from something that actually matters and will affect your life. They tell you stupid things like they lie about the Second Amendment. And then they admit it. Because PolitiFact's out there. Is CNBC, is MSNBC, or CNN, is the New York Times, are they talking about Joe Biden just lied to the American people about the Second Amendment? PolitiFact actually proves it? Did they actually come out and make this a big, because that's a big thing. You have someone, an elected official, theoretically the most important elected official in the free world, just lied to 330 million people about a fundamental fact of their nation. And you're not supposed to ask a question. You're not supposed to think about it. You're just supposed to obey. Really? Dow mentions we should discuss critical race theory. Why was it antithetical to American Why is it antithetical to American ideals? How it counters advancement by merit? Well, I think in part we have been, and I'm more than willing to do it, but I can tell you that what I would love to do is have some of the college professors that I'm speaking with actually come online and actually have that discussion. They won't. I want them to actually be honest and present the information to the public. They won't. Michael Bowie mentions, I don't believe anything being done today is for our benefit. They are making everything worse. And they are. I do believe so. Now, I also believe we have the ability to stop this. We have the ability to change this. You can share this, you can like this, you can subscribe, please subscribe and let people know. But I think the problem is they're counting on the fact that too many people are busy trying to watch Disney Plus, and they're watching all these, the movies like the remake of the Powderpuff Girls. They're watching the reimagining of Star Wars. That people are so busy worried about that they're not paying attention. More people, I guarantee you, more people are going to watch a review of Batwoman, a show that everyone knows is doing horrible. A show that has, what is it? I think it's rated at a 0.17 in terms of ratings. 300,000 people watch that. And more people will talk about that show than actually watch the show. And it will get more views at the same, then when we're going to see how many people are actually going to talk about the fact that the Second Amendment is absolutely fundamental to the nation, and that Joe Biden just lied to the American people about a fundamental right that they have. He is actively, in lying about the Second Amendment, he is taking away your freedom. He is actively stripping you of freedom. He is literally ripping it from your soul. And more people will talk about Batwoman than they will this conversation. There are people who are being literally banned at this moment, as we showed you. Gail and Susan, for literally just saying, hey, there is an audit going on to make you more confident about the elections that you are voting in. And they're being stripped of their freedom to do that because YouTube doesn't like it. We have the news media going out and actively lying to your face, literally lying to your face, telling you, that's not arson in the background, that's just lighting. This is peaceful because, burning down other people's buildings, that's peaceful. Can't think of anything more peaceful than a marshmallow roast at someone's home as you burn it down, possibly with them in it. And that brings us back to what they said in France, because France gets it. Charles de Gaulle got it. You start by giving your hat, then you give your coat, then your shirt, then your skin, and finally your soul. They are stripping away our freedoms. They are stripping away America, and they're trying to take your soul. You may think I'm wrong, and I'm more than happy to hear you express your First Amendment right to have the free speech to tell me, Mike, I think you're wrong. But don't tell me I'm wrong because you feel it. I'm showing you evidence of how they are doing it. Show me the evidence where they're not. Show me the benefit. I'll make this really easy for you. Let me make this really easy. Let's assume, like the academics believe, that every white person in America is evil, intrinsically evil and racist, and they have white power and white rage. Let's assume that that is true. How does that make my life better? How does that make your life better? How does that improve anything in America by saying that that's true? Because we're going to take away things from those people? Because we're going to take things from them. So that's going to make them more peaceful by aggressively taking from them to give to someone else. Let me ask you a question. If I took your stuff for an arbitrary reason that may not be true, or at the very least, you don't believe is true. You jaywalked across the street. Someone said you jaywalked across the street. So we're going to take your car. We're going to take your house. We're going to take your goldfish, your dog. It doesn't matter. We're going to take something from you because someone said you did something that you may or may not have done, which isn't intrinsically a problem. It's not an issue that's going to actually have any harm to anyone. And they're going to take it away from you, give it to someone else. And are you suddenly going to feel better? Is that person who got the stuff, are they going to feel better? Did their self-worth go up knowing that they had to be given things because no one believes they could earn it themselves? I want you to think. You don't have to agree with me. I've never asked you to agree with me. That's not what the conversation here today is about. That's not why we do this every Sunday. It's not for you to say, well, Mike's the greatest guy. Oh, I agree with him blindly. Please don't. Disagree with me. Argue with me. Complain. Tell me where you think I've gotten something wrong. It happens. But let me also ask you, I want you to think. Because that's what they're telling you not to do. That's something they are absolutely punishing you for daring to ask questions and to think. My God, if there's no better reason to do it than that. But I will say in closing, I hope that if you found this to be interesting, if you found it to be informative, please like, share, most of all, subscribe. And I ask you to subscribe because that lets more people get to see this. Because only by using the algorithms that they have created is the only way that this spreads. By you sharing this with other people, that's the only way that this spreads. And that means that we get to have more people talking, and that means we get closer to having a real answer, to really improving our nation. Because I can tell you right now, critical race theory isn't doing it. If critical race theory was really helping America, we wouldn't have the riots that we had over the summer. We wouldn't have the autonomous zones that we have right now. You wouldn't have the increase in violence that we have right now. It's because they're making America worse, not better. And if anyone disagrees with that, that's fine. I'm not going to hate on you. I'm not going to tell you you should be banned. I'm not going to tell you you should be silenced. What I am going to say is, explain to me why. It's easy enough. Folks, I love being able to speak with you every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I look forward to speaking with you next Sunday. From anywhere in the world, please reach out and speak with us on this program, as long as the internet overlords will allow, on whatever channels they will allow, at least one of the Facebook channels that they won't. And we look forward to seeing your comments. Until next week, I want you to be, next time that we speak with you, I want you to be well. I look forward to speaking with you all again. And I want to thank Mike, and Ann, and who else was, I want to try and get to everyone here. Shauna, and Will You Teach Me, and Dal, and Hot Chicks. Guys, everybody, I want to thank you all for being here every week and joining us. Everyone, I want you to have a great day.